I think Guam's greatest resource right now are its people. I know geographically that's also, I think, a resource, but Guam's greatest resource are its people. And I think a shift in an economic mindset would be to create a Guam Aerospace and Defense Alliance that is specifically designed to bring everybody together, to brand it, to market it, to showcase what Guam can do. And that what would do it would attract other customers, like other businesses like me, to come in. It would de-risk Guam for a business to come in here, knowing that there is one organization, it's one throughput, and their whole goal is to get company A into the Guam business community as quickly as possible to set up shop. We have a trained labor force for you, and we have a business environment that is conducive to your operations.
Up a day, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News the first and third Fridays of each month. Well, our guest today is an outstanding individual. He is the Chief Growth Officer and previous Director of Business Development and External Affairs for Marunda Private Limited, headquartered in Singapore. He helped stand up Marunda's Guam presence in August of 2024. He led early ship repair wins in Guam, supporting the first two U.S. Navy combatant repairs in May through June of 2025, as well as pierside at Naval Base Guam in coordination with Austell USA tasking. He worked for Austell as a Pacific Region Senior Manager and as a strategic advisor for both the Asia and Middle East regions. He has a bachelor's from Norwich University, a master's of education degree from the University of Rhode Island, and a master's degree in national security and strategic studies from the U.S. Naval War College. He had a 20-year career in the United States Navy as a surface warfare officer. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Michael Little. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be here.
Well, outstanding to have you. Thank you for making time in your schedule to talk to us. So we got a transition here on the podcast. We start off with some icebreaker questions to get a sense of where your head is at in terms of innovation. So we'll start off. What's your definition of innovation, and what does innovation mean to you?
Yeah, that's one question I haven't thought a lot about. We use that word almost every day nowadays in our vernacular. So with innovation, I think invention is baked into the word, right? So invention, and I think automatically I go to our roots of the entrepreneurial spirit of developing revolutionary products, revolutionary systems. But I think maybe more in line with our conversation, innovation has to do with thought leaders and concept and ideas. That's also innovation in my book.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So what's your favorite piece of technology or your favorite innovation?
Anything, as I look at our hardworking staff, through here in Guam and then obviously in Singapore and throughout the region, anything that deals with making my staff's life easier and more effective and more efficient. And they thrive, and they embrace that innovation and technology. And just like it's natural where some of the old timers might be resistant, but we're bringing in more and more younger generation into our team that are championing and guiding our older staff, like me, into new innovative processes to make ourselves more efficient and effective for our customer.
Yeah, yeah. So what's your favorite innovation you've seen in the ship repair industry?
I'm liking what I see with augmented and virtual reality and AI.
Mm,
This is it's hard to stay on top of it, and you have this mindset. Hey, that's in the future. It's coming, but Rob, I'm telling you, it's here now, and it's doubling and tripling down. It seems like on an annual basis in terms of the advancements of even how we're doing ship repair. So I'm really liking some of our primes on how they're using augmented virtual reality headsets to do real-time troubleshooting, real-time repair, and shortening the response times for our customers' requirements in Indo-Pacific.
Innovation leaders, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson here. Are you ready to elevate your vehicle fleet operations? Fleet Solutions is an AI-enabled fleet management system. Fleet Solutions provides real-time video, smart analytics, and total efficiency. Keep your people safe and keep your business moving forward faster than ever before. Fleet Solutions, arriving tomorrow, today. Visit thefleetsolutions.net or call 671-988-9748 to schedule your personalized demo and revolutionize your fleet operations today. Again, Michael, I appreciate you being on the podcast. I respect you as one of the leading, um, thought leaders out there in this industry and in this region. You and I have had several offline talks, and it's always a wealth of information. And you've been really passionate about, ship repair, providing logistics and sustainment capability in this region for the United States Navy. Can you talk to me about what you know of the history of ship repair in Guam?
Yeah, I'll do my best, and I'm a a novice historian, but I think just in going back into the post World War II era, um, that the United States Navy established a network of government owned ship repair facilities, um, and we have there are primarily four of them: Yokosuka in Japan, Sasebo in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
SRF Subic Bay in the Philippines, and then SRF Guam. And those were incredibly important, incredibly powerful ship repair facilities that kept our fleet maintained. Now, mind you, post World War II into the into the 70s and 80s, we had a 600 pushing ship navy. It was a massive navy compared to where we're at now with our numbers. Um, so I think we lost SRF Subic when Mount Pinatubo blew up
Yeah,
in the 92 timeframe. And then eventually, I think in the mid 90s, 95, that SRF Guam was bracked under the base realignment and closure process.
right.
Um, since then, that shipyard or that facility, SRF Guam, um, obviously a very, very capable and very an important infrastructure to still maintaining the fleet, even post BRAC, but it operated under several different private, public, government, commercial operating models that were highly successful into I think probably into that 2013, 14, 15, 16 timeframe, when then the entire maintenance model kind of shifted. So the facility is obviously uh, hasn't been used in decades. I mean, you know how what happens to facilities when they're not utilized, especially in the tropics and in Asia. Um,
Absolutely.
so it's in. I don't have an official, obviously, assessment of the facility other than my eyes. Um, but yeah, that was the cornerstone of the entry of into the Western Pacific for ship repair for the United States Navy and for Military Sea Lift Command. So, and since then, there's been a restructuring a little bit. Singapore has always been not necessarily an outlier in terms of how they have facilitated U.S. Navy maintenance for years, and still to a certain extent, if you're a deployer, so if you're deployed out of Pac Northwest, out of Everett or San Diego or Hawaii, or even out of Japan, if you're operating in the Pacific and you need repair work, that is facilitated out of SRF Singapore. So there's a new SRF Singapore that's aligned under the NAVC structure.
Yeah, that was a great history. I knew you'd take us through a lot of insight there. A follow-up question for you. When those SRFs closed here in Guam as well as in the Philippines, and yes, there was, the Singapore SRF that stood up, but it seemed like that was kind of like a mini. It didn't have the same full amount of capabilities that Guam or Subic Bay had at its peak. Um, how well did the U.S. Navy get their sustainment needs met in this theater? It seemed like maybe something was always missing. Would you agree with that, or do you think that the changed model covered down on all of the sustainment requirements that the Navy had in this theater?
So yeah, good question. So we're dealing with a lot of different components there. We're dealing with a shrinking fleet. Okay, that's one component. So
Yeah,
the cost the cost of keeping these SRFs manned and functioning, whether it's through an architecture of U.S. Navy leadership as well as civilian employees, that's one dynamic. Is the workload there? Okay, because operational and maintenance models have consistently shifted and adapted over the years. But to keep an SRF in full production and full operation, was the demand signal there? Probably not, as the drawdown happened. It's crushing. As a ship repair guy, we want to keep shipyards in capacity and operation.
right.
There's probably a lot of other competing dynamics there in terms of land reclamation in certain areas, and tax, utilities. All those things kind of impact decisions beyond ship repair. Operational schedules, political dynamics from congressional delegations from California to Washington and Hawaii that want that repair work back, in their districts. Everybody understands that.
Mhm.
So it's just that constant ebb and flow in terms of capability and the viability of keeping production in place to ensure our fleet's operating properly.
Yeah, that's a great lead in for my next question. And it's kind of the $64,000 question from a Marunda perspective, and that's why Guam, why now? What specific demand signals were you all seeing at Marunda that convinced you plant the flag here in Guam and stand up this capability?
Yeah, so we've been here in terms of our entry, in terms of us making this decision over 2 years now, and then officially, like, as you mentioned in your intro, we've been stood up operationally probably for about a year now. Um, there are a lot of different components there. And some involves geopolitics, some involves just because of what we do as a company. We are a defense company. Um, and the way we do our business, almost, at least from certain elements, we're encouraged to come here to establish a presence here. A lot of speculation. We're a business. So we didn't ask anything of anybody. We had to roll our sleeves up, sharpen our pencils,
Yeah.
and make a commitment as a business, as an SME. Um, so it's been kind of nail biting for us, which I can talk about. But I think going back to COVID, and I think that might stimulate the direction of this conversation. But COVID, we lost our customer, because the whole entire Western Pacific shut down. Okay, that's just one element of losing a customer base. Even the defense primes that we represent lost their access. In Guam, for those vessels that were either on deployment and got caught up in it, or were deployed still protecting the sea lanes and during their missions, utilized Guam as a safe haven.
That's a great insight, highlighting the impact of COVID and during the time of the global pandemic and the impact that it had in the theater on the Navy's mission and access to different ports or ship repair locations. A lot of people don't realize a lot of the impacts there. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Um, sure. So no matter pandemic or not, we still have a mission to do. Are the defense primes that we represent that have Indo-Pacific missions, they still have a job to do. Our Navy still has a job to do. So it's ensuring that our customer and the primes that we represent have a vehicle or a platform to still get the mission done. And Marunda has really fit really nicely into these micro partnerships that enable others' missions. Um, and in principle, um, with big defense primes, massive companies that necessarily aren't as nimble are as decisive because it's just how they have to operate in terms of stage gates, decision making, boards, stock owners, those kind of things uh, at a higher level. But at the tactical level, where a Marunda is nimble, decisive, and quick and responsive to their mission requirements. So it's been a really good fit for us over the past 30 years since we've been developing these relationships. So mission aside, the mission needs to continue. The ship repair needs to continue. If I would, if I would put on, Mike Little's Naval War College hat, just as a citizen, as a prior naval officer, if you do look at COVID from a denied access standpoint, okay, and there are really good efforts right now by the United States Department of Defense with the regional sustainment framework happening in the Western Pacific to ensure that our allies um, or that our friends in the region have the capability and capacity to ensure that the United States Navy and Military Sea Lift Command can operate in a contested logistics or contested ship repair environment. That's good news. Okay. This is important for our nation, and I'm glad that someone's thinking about it. Um, but in terms of having that regional sustainment framework established
Yeah.
and having go to traditional areas where we might tend to lean toward for ship repair, what if we lose that capability? What if we lose that access? And you can use the spectrum again, putting you know, my Naval War College hat on, the spectrum of what could happen in terms of cyber attack, economic sanctions, mine warfare. Um, it's the whole spectrum, right? In terms of the U.S. Navy not having access to places that we want to repair ships or do our logistics in a contested environment. So that leads us back to Guam, doesn't it? It leads us back to Guam. Um, So there's a lot of elements there besides just being a business practitioner, being a defense company, um, ensuring that we are there for the defense primes that we represent and ensuring that we're there for our end user customers. And by the way, I know I talk heavy on the United States Navy because that's one of our prime customers. We're talking our allied and partner navies also. I've been doing this. I've been doing this in the Western Pacific probably close for 25 years. Um, and I know operations. It's the Navy. Operations, shift, and um, different fleet commanders, different priorities, different geopolitical stressors that on how we operate. I have never seen the volume of allied and partner navies entering the Indo-Pacific um, in the past 2 years. As a fleet man, as a Navy guy, glad to see it. But the activity of the French carrier strike group coming through, the Italian
Yes.
strike group coming through, the Germans, the Norwegians, the Spanish, the Canadians, the Australians, and then just today, as we're sitting here operating or having a conversation, um, the Prince of Wales carrier strike group from the Royal Navies in with their strike group for almost 6 to 7 months patrolling the Pacific. The byproduct of that is more ship repair and maintenance requirements. You're having more and more fleets operate further and further from home that they probably have done in a long time. That require having trusted and vetted partners that they can rely on in the region to repair their vessels where they need it the most.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's also a great segue into my next question. You've been on record saying before that Guam is poised for a renaissance in the defense industry. What are those trends that you're seeing that make you confident about steady work coming through Guam to create this renaissance as you see it in defense industry work?
Yeah, I mean, and I've been fortunate enough to be coming to Guam off and on for the past 25 years, both active duty and in the private sector. I'm not sure how to capsulize this in words, but you can almost sense that there's a vibe in the air, and I'm seeing it at least on the ground in terms of people who I talk with. I can see it in terms of a renaissance per se, but a renaissance, especially on the academia side. That maybe
Yeah.
the pendulum swung a little too far in the wrong direction with not really having the pulse on reinvesting in the citizenry and the education and the skill sets in the population. I think that trend is reversing. I think we're operating in a on the extreme fringes of any kind of post-COVID economic environment where I think Guam played their hand really well with tourism. But I think you got to keep the pulse on that because that is not sustainable as a single economic pillar to Guam. You can just turn on the news. You can just read local periodicals in terms of what's happening further in the Western Pacific. Um, Even with the principles I'm discussing and talking to, it's almost the new frontier. And I really truly believe that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Not that, Marunda is just a small company. We do what we do. We happen to be fortunate to have a really good profile with what we do. Been very successful. But we're here for a reason, right? So
Right.
I'm thinking that at least from a growth officer, we would not be investing capital or time and energy in Guam if we didn't think that there was, first of all, a opportunity as a business, but then almost equally as important to ensure that our nation has the proper service providers to provide for its defense, especially on the naval side.
Absolutely. I see the same thing. I see a coalescence of policy at the national level with the National Defense Industrial Strategy, the Regional Sustainment Framework, those things pushing more industrial capability out to the Pacific so that we can support the forces closer to the fight. Um, and I see all of that, and I think that Guam is uniquely postured to really benefit from
Yeah.
all of that stuff that's going on. Now, with all of that said, let me play devil's advocate, because there are some on island who say, look, our primary bread and butter is tourism. Tourism is, what brought us here. We've got to continue to double down on tourism, and that this is just a temporary trough that we're in right now, post pandemic. That what we just need to do is put more effort into it, and then we will see the kind of levels that we saw pre pandemic. What say you on that?
Um, so I guess as an American, if this was happening in my home state and I was a taxpayer, or if I was in the voting population here on Guam, I would I would not like to see my government double down on tourism at this point. I would like maybe because Guam, they're fighters, right? So you're not going to give up, right? You have a crown jewel here, in my opinion. So you want to make it a strong, tailored pillar of your economy, not the whole entire economy. Um, so I necessarily, I guess, from my vantage point, as a representative of a business that's growing on Guam, in an entirely different segment, um, not to necessarily give up on tourism, not to double down on tourism, maybe to do maybe some posturing and some reevaluation, but to make it a prong or a pillar in a diversified economy here on Guam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Uh, let's talk about ship repair capabilities and the ship repair capabilities that you see that are alive and well today in Guam, in terms of people, equipment, pier side infrastructure. Can you talk to me about kind of your assessment of what you see and what we have today, what you want to do in terms of investment from a Marunda standpoint, and then from a collective piece, if in partnership with government of Guam, DOD partners, et cetera, what's in the realm of possibilities and worthy of investing in to grow capability? What does that roadmap look like to you?
Yeah, a lot of questions. I mean, make sure I get them all for you, and we can circle back if I miss some. So when we just touched on the historical aspects of ship repair on Guam,
Yeah,
so I think legacy wise, Guam is an island of it's a maritime nation per se, or maritime territory per se, that had a rich history in ship repair. Um, that legacy still exists here, and we have several companies on the island right now that are very capable, and are strong performers in supporting military sea lift command today with ship repair, and that's really important.
right.
With what the future holds, um, at least from a Marunda standpoint. So we're a defense focused company, and what that means is, so the roots of our company is in power generation, large land based and maritime power generation systems. This is the core of our company from 40 years ago, and we've also expanded that into other business units. So we have business units that repair, Leopard tanks for the Singapore Armed Forces.
Wow.
We have other defense business units, vice just naval repair. Naval repair is obviously very important to it. It's what I do, so it's obviously the most important thing in my book. But we are a diversified uh, uh, defense company. We only focus on defense. We do that through a lot of different mechanisms, either directly with the U.S. government under contract through our credentialing. But Rob, what I'm seeing more and more is, whether it's a Ministry of Defense in the United Kingdom, or pick your nation, including the United States, of DODs, ministries of defense, navies awarding these large scale, in some cases, global contracts, if not fleet or regional size contracts, that are really uniquely designed for this business to business engagement. So case in point, besides, our long-standing relationship with the U.S. Navy, been really working hard in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has two OPVs, offshore patrol vessels, stationed in the Indo-Pacific for 5 years. So get your head around that one. You think that the U.S. Navy's littoral combat ship rotational program, rotating a ship out for 2 years. The Royal Navy does it for 5 years, and they rotate the crews accordingly. the level, they're not going to see the United Kingdom for 5 years. That vessel won't. The demand on that vessel for maintenance is significant because it's constantly operating. So really tapping into being able to enable those two vessels are under a global contract. So although there's two in the Pacific, there's one down in the Falklands, there's one in the Caribbean, there's one in the Mediterranean, and there's two in the Pacific. One company has all those ships. And so they need enablers, they need vehicles, they need micro partnerships like a Marunda to facilitate the industrial arm to get the vessels repaired. You're going to see this more and more of these contracts. You're going to see more and more vessels that are rotationally deployed, forward deployed, that the demand signal in their maintenance will increase because what they want is they want persistent presence.
Yes.
You can imagine to leave the United Kingdom to get into the Indo-Pacific, you're probably talking at least, a month and a half to 2 months, depending upon, how fast they're going, but just in context. Same thing from America. To get a vessel out here, it's going to take a good month. So to cut that dynamic, you leave the vessel in a geopolitical sensitive approach, rotationally deployed, forward deployed, however the construct is, but you leave the vessel there and then relying on regional maintenance service providers to provide the maintenance. So it is this model where we do it directly with the U.S. government. We do it under global defense primes, which we've been doing for 30 plus years. And then under our business model, we have defense products. It's just been a complementary business unit for us where we sell military primarily in the ship repair context of coating systems, application systems that are both mil-spec, NAVSEA approved, and have commercial applications. So it is that model going full circle here, Rob. Sorry for so long, but we want to replicate that model.
No, you're doing a great explanation.
Our goal is to replicate that model on Guam. To a certain extent, where some of our OEM, so original equipment manufacturer representation, realizing in terms of not even in a peacetime, in a normal state scenario where we're at now, not to mention contested logistics, contested ship repair, supply chains they're still disrupted. And so, especially on the military side, these parts aren't just sitting on a shelf in Singapore. They're sitting someplace, and if it's MTU, it could be on a shelf in Germany, or they have to manufacture it, or if it's a U.S. product, it's the supply chain dynamics. Same with getting technicians in. So they're not just sitting on a bench in San Diego waiting to fly someplace. So this is the most important part when a vessel needs servicing from an OEM technician, especially if it needs parts. It's syncing the repair part up with the proper technician at the same time. And that takes time. And fleet commanders, commodores, they don't like their vessels sitting pierside waiting on parts. It's the dynamic. Some of our operating models have been, over the past 30 years, have been to send our Singaporean staff back to America for factory training, for factory OEM training. And this is under a process through the Department of State, under a technical assistance agreement compliance process, in order for primes, defense primes or OEMs, to share at least the technical data to know how to repair and troubleshoot systems. So what this does when we do that we have certified trained technicians in everything from engines to davits to booms to hangar bay doors, to name your system. It shortens the response time. And do you know who likes that? Our customer likes that, because we can be there within an hour. at a minimum, we're troubleshooting. At a minimum, we're troubleshooting. We're back. We're back on the phone, or we're back through virtual augmented reality and doing real-time repair and troubleshooting now instantaneously, or more responsive than having a technician fly in. And I'm joking here, but having a technician fly in and saying, "Hey, your engine's broke. I'll see you in 5 weeks with the parts." Those days are over, and especially if it gets contested, because no one's flying in. Go back to COVID. No one's flying in. The parts aren't coming. You're by yourself. So again, this is the gravitational pull. This is the center of gravity for Guam's importance of establishing Guam as a center of excellence for defense ship repair again, where I get excited about the opportunity for Marunda to hire local, and I know they're there. We can have that discussion, but to hire local, and then get them back to the United States for overhaul training, technical training, maintenance training, and then build that cadre out here where the U.S. Navy now has a growing faith that they can get their servicing done here in a professional manner.
Yeah, that's really exciting when you lay it out like that. I really can see the vision and it gets me really, really pumped up. And for really all the people of Guam, if you tune in, you listen to kind of this vision, it should make you excited as well, because a lot of opportunities there if we just kind of reach out and grab them. Let me ask you a little bit about ABR certification. So Marunda's held NAVSEA ABR certification since 2004. For our audience, can you talk to what is ABR certification? What does it enable? Why is it important?
Yeah, I think Rob, just in principle, if you are, especially if you're building a ship in America, at one of our prime shipbuilding facilities in America, if you are building a ship, and especially if you're repairing a ship, you just need the proper credentialing by the U.S. Navy, and that NAVSEA ABR is just one of the credentialings that we have that enables us to facilitate that. Even with the Royal Navy, with the Australian Navy, we have gone through our own compliance requirements to participate in the defense, aerospace, and security industries in those countries. So it's the credentialing that we need. It is the compliance that we need to facilitate repair work on U.S. Navy combatants.
It seems like a great force multiplier. In your humble opinion, do you think that that's something that we here in Guam need to invest more in terms of workforce development pipelines? I know GCC is doing great work in building and launching a ship repair workforce training facility, and the Trades Academy, GCA Trades Academy, is doing similar programs being brought on board. But the idea or providing the vision of at least getting people trained up to this standard of NAVSEA, ABR kind of level, or do you think that the juice isn't worth the squeeze?
Let's take a step back a little bit and talk a little broader picture. So all those organizations, GCC, the Guam Trades Academy, UOG, this is where I'm seeing the excitement. Okay, and this have a gravitational pull that direction in terms of championing what they're doing. I think from a bigger picture, again, Mike Little, private citizen. I can actually use, at least from my business entry into Guam has been quite challenging. So bunch of wonderful people, and I can say that all day. Amazing people, maybe underpinned with some processes that aren't doing them any favors. With things like that, they're not digitized. just the processes aren't necessarily streamlined for business entry into Guam. Not that it's not business friendly, but it's been difficult, more difficult than maybe it should have been. But we got through it. And again, what makes it work is because the people are so positive and friendly, and they're helping us through it. I think from the whole ecosystem, whether it's academia, trades training, the business culture, the government culture, the business culture, that they're all working in individual stovepipes. And I think there is a massive amount of opportunity to coalesce them all together. I know they have maybe different budgets, different agendas, different priorities, but when it comes to maybe redefining and having that renaissance on Guam, that it truly deserves a serious organization with serious people, and they're here, and there are serious people here that understand the importance of Guam as a potential defense industrial state, or at least getting a pillar set up that it is a main driving force of this economy once again. I'm not talking necessarily the buildup or construction. I'm talking the sustainment of assets coming in that need servicing. But to make this place a world-class center of excellence focused on defense, that's tailored to defense, that's tailored to primes, that's tailored to SMEs. And if you go back to any base in America, or any base just in principle, naval base, air base, army base, there is a SME architecture around those bases that are servicing the
cottage industries,
in whether they're engineering, piping, you name it, in terms of the satisfying the unquenchable thirst for services within those bases. You just don't see it here. It has never necessarily developed traditionally, but I think this having you touched on it maybe in your article or in your opening remarks. I have seen some wonderful models in America and Australia of really bringing together government, industry, public and private, nonprofit, academia, community leaders, all together under one alliance, so that you're all speaking from the same script and same worksheet, where you are championing creating a world-class labor force and trade force that's tailored to the trades that defense needs, as well as a world-class infrastructure to support your defense customers. So I've seen it work, and I think you can look at necessarily modeling, but Guam has some parallels to other regions where they have a population center, but necessarily it's remote, or it's out of the typical operating environment for the military. But I think Guam's greatest resource right now are its people. I know geographically that's also, I think, a resource, but Guam's greatest resource are its people. And I think a shift in an economic mindset would be to create a Guam Aerospace and Defense Alliance that is specifically designed to bring everybody together, to brand it, to market it, to showcase what Guam can do. And that what would do it would attract other customers, like other businesses like me, to come in. It would de-risk Guam for a business to come in here, knowing that there is one organization, it's one throughput, and their whole goal is to get company A into the Guam business community as quickly as possible, to set up shop We have a trained labor force for you. And we have a business environment that is conducive to your operations.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for the shameless plug. You know, I've written about this thing in several of my articles and trying to brand that idea of
It
a
works.
Guam Aerospace Defense Alliance with the focus both internal and external, internal, getting together with serious-minded people to kind of work a roadmap to address the things that need to be addressed to make Guam competitive in the 21st century, and then externally to market and brand Guam as
Yeah.
this hub for defense sustainment industry to come in and provide them, like you said, this one-stop shop so that it makes it easy for them to kind of come to Guam, get set up, and off and running very quickly and easily
Yeah.
and seamlessly. And like you said, there are lots of different models of where this has been done successfully. So I'm passionate about that because of everything that you just laid out. Um, you know, you go to other bases in the United States and other places, and you have these cottage industries built up around the base in the local community that helps to support and sustain the mission of those weapon systems, those forces on the base. That's what I feel like is Guam's 21st century um, opportunity. We've been focused and just happy on just the fact that we have all this construction build up,
Right.
and that means more people coming in and more military members and their family spending dollars on the economy. We need to go the next step. The next step is how do we build up this network of cottage industries that are going to support and sustain the forces that are on these bases and attracting key players to come in, set up shop to do the same. And that is, I believe, a pathway to technology innovation that then attracts capital and
Yeah.
investment into the commercial side as well to then develop that side of the technology industry.
Yeah. And it is exciting, but I've been, when I run, when I go for a run down on Tumon, and you look and you have all these wonderful and delicious Korean restaurants, okay, or Japanese restaurants. So why do we have all these Korean and Japanese restaurants that make this delicious food? And because they have a customer base, they have tourism here that love that food. So what came first, the tourist or the restaurant? Don't know, but that's kind of where you're at. That if you create in an operating environment, again with all of government, all of industry together, maybe even some private equity, to really incentivize and put some skin in the game here
Yes,
to reverse the trend of the infrastructure piece of uh, of creating models where, and I've seen it work with multi-purpose facilities or common user facilities. So these concepts where um, a defense prime in America wins the contract, might be 2 weeks, might be a month, maybe longer than that. But then it's Gov Guam saying, congratulations, come on in, use our facility. We got a trained labor staff. We got a trained labor pool for you. Execute your contract, and then move out. But then here we go. Gov Guam owns this facility now. It's a common user facility where you'll have
right.
multiple multiple companies in that facility doing their jobs, maybe collaborating together, getting tax
Absolutely.
revenue from it, Um, and then you look at scalable models. There's always been discussions over the past few years regarding dry dock capability back on Guam, and that's again, I, I love that kind of concept. But then when you ask for a dry dock, watch out what you're asking for, because then you're asking for dry dock masters, architects, a lot of labor, typhoon mooring, power generation, all these things. It's not getting the dry dock here would be the easy part. Getting it in operation would be the challenging. But look at capabilities such as a simple synchro lift, where a platform could then pull out the fast response cutters and then on a dolly
Yes.
system and put them on the tarmac. So now you're repairing 2 or 3 ships at a time, vice having your dry dock clobbered for a month or 2 months. So it's about really looking at infrastructure, maximizing infrastructure, um, and then creating the infrastructure that de-risks it for business, but then uh, could be a plus for Gov Guam. There are also other models where let an organization, whether it's the Guam Aerospace and Defense Alliance, but their own third party vetting that gives defense the reassurance that company A, B, and C that are now working on Guam have been fully vetted, fully compliant.
Yes.
Um, that's what I had to go through with the United Kingdom. When I got through that compliance process, it was much harder than the U.S. Navy's. But when you get through that, all those defense primes, Babcock, BAE, A&P Group, they know exactly where Marunda stands in terms of our compliance and our standards to meet that threshold. So I think Guam can embrace it. Guam can own it. Guam can control it, um, and be the benefactor of it.
Yeah, I love that. That same vision is something that I've talked to a lot of different people who are willing to listen. That idea of, can you imagine if we uh, raised, on a bond initiative or private equity um, capitalization, built up a large state-of-the-art industrial facility on the commercial side of the port that then enabled, multi-use or common use kind of facility for maintenance, repair, and sustainment work to come in here. And if
Yeah,
you outfitted that facility with state-of-the-art power, air, water, synchro lift, like what you were talking about, and all of that kind of infrastructure, it would be something that people want to come to. They'd be knocking on your door trying to
yeah,
get in and use that because it's in the right location to serve their customers in the right way. And guess what? Gov Guam owns it, and Gov Guam can generate the tax revenues from that. Whereas a lot of the maintenance work right now that's happening on ships is happening in the inner harbor, which they don't get any. Gov Guam gets little to no tax benefit or revenue from.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, these are just concepts that I've come across that I know that work. Legacy, same kind of dynamic. Remote locations, no infrastructure, got a labor force that needs employment, needs education. But by coming together and going back maybe to the beginning of this kind of topic, this segment, is that bunch of wonderful people, bunch of wonderful programs. I think from my vantage point, if it was synced up together under one organization, with a director, board of directors, that are really championing the creation of a center of excellence, for Guam for defense. Um, there is a little bit of if you build it, they will come. That's just in the nature
yes.
of doing business.
And there's risk associated with that, obviously, but I feel like the risk is well worth it, and then it creates a virtuous cycle, right? So if you're successful in that, it's going to draw more workload, defense workload to you. And
Right.
then if you're using cutting edge technologies like additive manufacturing, AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, IoT, et cetera. And that's the norm. And people on Guam have those skill sets, then commercial industry is going to want to come uh, on island and take use of those trained folks to use on commercial products and workloads and et cetera. So it then starts getting you on a real and credible pathway to making Guam that 21st century tech and innovation of the future. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about those advanced technologies. You talked already about AR, VR, and stuff like that. Can you also talk about autonomous surface vessels, additive manufacturing, or any of these emerging technologies in use at Marunda to help you all with your mission, ship repair mission?
Yeah, with I'll make it short on the autonomous surface vessel aspect. They're coming. Okay, so beyond that, I'm not going to go too much in detail, but they also require mobilization, demobilization, and sustainment. And I think Guam would be an ideal, will be an ideal place to do that. So, but you know, I would hate to say, but as a surface warfare officer, that eventually, not maybe in my lifetime, maybe in my lifetime, but we'll start seeing more and more unmanned surface combatants. So this it was like almost on the topic of with augmented virtual reality. Hey, that's our AI. That's in the future. No, afloat, our autonomous surface vessels. They're here and they're coming. So, and you can't run away from it. Now it's just leaning into it and figuring out how do you sustain them properly for their mission sets. For additive manufacturing, it is on the fringes of our fit. We know we're going to embark into this again, the word ecosystem, because it is a massive ecosystem. It's just not about 3D printing. It is a
Right.
whole aspect to that sector. We have really explored a lot in Singapore of on-demand manufacturing. So oil and gas in the commercial sector have been doing this for years. And the quality tolerances with oil and gas supersede mil spec. And I've done a little bit of research on this. For the most part, in terms of the pressure tolerances and the operating environment with oil and gas, very dangerous environment. So they've been, I'll say they, but the oil primes and commercial shipping has been doing globally on-demand manufacturing for parts, for let's just say for a decade, because the supply chain's just not there. And if you have a pen, but you don't need the whole pen, you just need this part right here, they can just manufacture this part right here, vice buying the whole entire thing. It's that kind of concept. So with Astro America and Gamma, big fans of what they're up to. But we will eventually find our fit in how we champion that with our customer base on Guam. The fact that they're coming here should be also telltale
Yes.
sign that things are shifting, right?
Yes.
So this has strong tethers to AUKUS, strong tethers to our submarine program, and new alliances, new ways of doing business. This is real. This is the real stuff that's going on in terms of the future of our forces in the Pacific.
Yes, absolutely. Man, great insights, great conversation. As we wrap, what are the key takeaways you'd like Guam's leadership and the people of Guam to know about their opportunities and prospects for developing this long-term viable ship repair capability?
I think from my vantage point, from Mike Little's vantage point, the timing is now. So no more studies, no more assessments. I think this island has had many of those over the years. I think you have the right leadership on the island. I think you have the right people on this island. It's about coming together, aligning, getting serious people with serious ideas, and then creating an environment that is conducive and business friendly to not only defense primes, but to the end state customer, to have them come here. And I think all the potential it's aligned. It's here. I get it. There'll be money challenges, and there'll be this discussion and that discussion, and I get it. But I think if we can get all of academia together, and get the public-private partnerships together, get nonprofits, get government, a little bit of government, not a lot of government, but it has to be championed by the government to make it work.
Right.
And then get a series director, get BAE, get a Fairbanks Morris chairman, or get some defense primes as your board of directors and help them guide you through this process, and get stakeholders, get defense prime stakeholders involved in terms of branding and marketing Guam as the new frontier, as a defense industrial state, and create it. Be visionary, be bold. Now's the time.
Absolutely. Wow. I tell you, Michael, you did not disappoint today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your incredible insights into Guam's ship repair realities, possibilities, and opportunities. It was an amazing conversation. We really appreciate you. To my audience, I hope you were inspired not just to think and see that there's a hope or a possibility, but inspired to start doing your piece to take action. Because right now we are at that place where it's not, off in the future. It's here now, and it's time to start taking actions. It might be small actions, but actions nonetheless. So please be inspired, and I hope you learned something new today. Remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all future episodes. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. See you next time. And remember, whether at home or at work or at play, always innovate. Thank you.